All right. We should be good here. We should be good here. Gonna go ahead and send this link out to the team. And then we'll get started here. We got a lot of stuff to talk about in the markets this week. I mean, it wasn't too interesting these past couple of months, but now we're starting to get in the end of this week. And really just with the close of March, we're starting to see some crazy moves. So what we'll do is we'll hop into some of the news events that we're looking for, and then we'll get active. All right. Okay. Send this to the team. Boom. There we go. Okay, so the first thing that we have to talk about this upcoming week is we do have some key news events that could actually really drive the markets here this week. What are you talking about? It's just delayed. I'm looking at this.
Oh, I don't know why it has. Never mind.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Appreciate you though. Let me go back. There we go. Okay, so yeah, we do have some high volume news events this week. The biggest being that on, it believes on Monday here. Let's see. If I'm not mistaken, this is, yes, Monday this week. We come down, we have Powell speaking. You can see Fed Chair Powell's speech at 10:30 on Monday. So that is going to be a volume driver here this week. And then this is going to be the end of Q3. So this week marks the end, or excuse me, not Q3. This week marks the end of Q4. This week marks the end of Q1. Goodness gracious. I don't know why I could get that out. And so what we'll have and see this week is a ton of news events. And then we have on Friday, we have NFP. We should have our NFP on Friday. Thursday. Oh, Friday is actually Good Friday. So we actually will see the markets be closed. You can see here, they'll close early on Thursday. Then Friday, April 3rd, we have non-farm payroll. So we got a ton of news that's going to be driving the markets here this week. A ton of news. Okay, so now what can we expect with the way we're looking in terms of our market here? So we pull up right here. We want to take a look at our charts. And specifically, we want to be taking a look at our weekly time frame. So now, why I always recommend starting with top-down analysis. And since the monthly is closing this week, we can actually take a look at how this monthly candle closed as well. Again, this is going to be the end of Q1. So each quarter we have high volume news events that are going to release. We're going to get a ton of data. You can expect a lot of volume and a lot of volatility into the markets. So if we look at our monthly candle, this monthly candle is closing as a very strong bearish monthly candle, especially after the past previous months have been kind of choppy in terms of our price action. We've seen that this previous weekly and really came in with a ton of volume here. And what we seen happen and what we talked about last week is this low here being a very key area of interest low, and how we were able to close below this low last week with a nice strong volume candle. It was likely that we seen a continued move to the downside to take out this weekly low and to start coming back down to retesting these 23,292s. So that was what we talked about last week. We actually did see the volume. Now Monday was quite peculiar. We had a lot of data releases at random times, or not data releases, excuse me, more like Trump tweets at random times. So like you can see this 5 a.m. or this 7:05 candle here. If we take a look and zoom in on this candle, we can see that this was our entire top bottom, or excuse me, this was our entire top wick for the weekly, right? So in one 5 minute candle, just a random 7:05 candle, no news event for that day, right? We see this spike up here. So what we're taking a look at in terms of our weekly time frames, again, coming back to our top-down analysis, is that we closed as a very bearish weekly candle. So what we can anticipate and where we're at right now is resistance. Now, price closed with so much volume at this level, we're anticipating a steeper move to the downside, but we do know that this is a larger time frame area of resistance, now potentially turning support. Now, being that, again, top-down analysis, our previous monthly, or our current monthly, excuse me, is going to close as a bearish candle. We would anticipate at the very least a steeper move to the downside for our next month. So for price to form a top wick and then to give us at least a steeper move to the downside, potentially targeting into these 22,371s. And the only reason why we're taking a look at these larger time frames, this quarterly, then this monthly here, is because of the fact that they're about to close and we're about to put in a new candle. So that's going to be the start of that there. So coming back to our weekly, what are we anticipating? I'm anticipating a steeper weekly move to the downside. Now, what do we have here for our daily time frame? Previous daily closed as a very strong bearish daily here. So where could we see a possible retest and continuation down? Well, again, this weekly, we're at a larger time frame area of interest. We have a resistance right here that price then broke out of. You can see as we close as a bearish daily below this low here, we got a retest back into this level and then a continuation down. If we take a look at our 4-hour, you can see this move here. We had a very nice impulsive move to the downside. And so what this is telling us is that, again, on all time frames, top to down, we're bearish, right? And so we were looking for possible bearish continuations. Again, just remembering that we are at a larger time frame area of resistance right here. So knowing that we are at a larger time frame area of resistance, what could I potentially expect putting all these time frames together? So I already anticipate that this next weekly to form at least a steeper bottom wick to the downside. So we're anticipating this weekly to be bearish. But what does the weekly have to do? It has to put in a top wick. So we could see a correction from this larger time frame key area of interest here to give us a type of correction, potentially pushing back into resistance up here, and then anticipating now a steeper move to the downside for the weekly to continue in the direction of what our current trend is, right? So as of right now, we're creating lower lows and lower highs on this weekly time frame. Now, remember, we have a lot of news. We talked about the news events that we have coming out this week, so keep an eye on that. That is going to be a main driver for this week. So especially after Powell speaks at 10:30 on Monday, we'll be taking a look at how the markets are reacting. The way the markets closed last week, right? We're seeing nice impulsive moves to the downside, right? So nice high volume moves to the downside. You can see here that it was relatively choppy. We wasn't getting very many continuations within this area here where price was kind of ranged off for quite some time. From the beginning of February, we stayed in this 4-hour range, and slowly now, after we were able to break that larger time frame area of resistance, right? Because that's why it was choppy in this area. Buyers and sellers were deciding which way we were going to push this markets. Now, the markets are obviously due for correction because of how bullish volume we were. So what market structure are we in? We're in a larger time frame corrective structure. Why? Because our monthly, we clearly are seeing creating higher highs and higher lows within this area here. So we were due for a correction, and then on the lower time frame, that resistance, if we're looking at it on the weekly, was right there at this 24,730 23.22. Like we were really just at this 24.7, let's say 750. And price was really just struggling to break through that low. Once we finally have broken through this low, now we're seeing this clean price action come into the markets under these lows here. And so what I'm anticipating is I want to see a corrective structure to form early on in the week to give me either a lower time frame retest into here at 23, let's say 23,500 would be a nice solid whole number. We always like to target the resistance and our solid whole number. So 23,500 resistance here. If we can get a retest here and a nice strong bearish confirmation, I'll be looking for shorts. If not, then we'll be looking for price to come back up and test this larger time frame area of interest. Now, since we broke with so much volume, I'm anticipating just how we had here to have a shallow correction. But we got to remember, we are at that larger time frame key area of interest. So we really just have to see how the price action goes. We're just anticipating that top wick at the high. We were looking for price to go to 23,850. On the lower time frame, we're looking for that 23,500 level here that we're going to look for possible sell moves to the downside if we can in fact see some type of correction. Now we're going to be looking for this in our session time. So we'll see how price is moving tomorrow during the New York session. And then again, that news coming out this week, be very, very careful because it is going to be a high, it's going to be a high driver, right? So we want to make sure that we're, keeping our eyes out for that. So in terms of our targets coming in this week, we're going to be looking for price to make this steeper move to the downside, likely targeting into these 2,300 levels. 2,300 would be a nice solid target for price to continue to push into, and we'll see how it reacts within these levels. Again, expecting a larger time frame potential correction off of this. This daily close very bearish, and so that's a good sign, and our overall trend is pushing us to the downside as well. So as long as we don't get some news changing market structure, as of right now, all signs point to the downside. So taking a look here at the ES here, same thing, right? So ES, as I like to say, monkey see, monkey do. All of these structures realistically on the indices, they pretty much do the same thing for the most part. There are some differences in, day-to-day price action, but in terms of our overall direction, these flow in the same type of way. So what we're seeing is a massive sell-off here from these all-time highs on the ES, and this weekly candle closing again as a bearish candle. Notice that we are at a resistance level here, a resistance now turned to support here on this weekly time frame. So we can see a correction, but we close with so much bearish volume and our lower time frame is still pushing us to the downside that the only thing that would flip this structure from being bearish to bullish for me is if we get a lower time frame, let's say on the daily time frame here, structure break. So where's my key high at on this area of interest based on the daily time frame? My key area of interest high is right here, right? And the high is the lowest, or the highest point, excuse me, that broke our previous low to create a new low, right? So this was the highest point that broke here. This was our previous highest point that broke our low. So if price pushed down, if it would have broken above this area of interest here, that flips the structure. Instead, it respected off of this structure and gave us a steeper move to the downside. So essentially, this structure is all bearish, and we've taken a look at the larger time frame to confirm that as well. And we're anticipating our next monthly to be pretty bearish, right? So anticipating a continuation move to the downside. Now, where are some targets that we can look for price to actually go to based on our lower time frame here? I would be looking for price to actually come back up here to give us a correction. What I don't like is just stepping in front of a moving train here. So price has just been dropping off here. We haven't gotten any form of a correction. In terms of a target I would want to see to place in that top wick for the weekly, is a resistance here back up to this 6,455 levels. If we can push back into these levels up here, if we can push back up into these levels up here, then I would look from this level, our lower time frame shift, and for price to push back down. We'll target price to break the previous weekly low. If price opens up on this weekly here and we just see a steeper move to the downside, we do want to wait for some type of correction to form to give us a change right here, and then we will look for our continuation to the downside based on our volume in our session. So as of right now, we're just waiting for a possible retest of this 6.55 levels. If price can't push back up to this level, again, we'll just see where we create some type of resistance here, and then we'll look for, again, the price action on the lower time frame to confirm that price wants to go to the downside, and we'll look for that there. I'm definitely liking the NASDAQ retest over the ES in terms of this here, but essentially we want to see this place in and make steeper lows. In terms of a larger time frame target, where could we see price go into? We could see it come down to this 6,300 level here. That's where I would see our next area of resistance if we can break through our current resistance here, right? This is our current resistance. Again, a larger time frame key area of interest. So price does need to hold below this 6,400 level. If we do break through this 6,400 level here, we can see this steeper move down into the 6,300s. That is what we'll be looking for this week. And again, expecting a lot of volume this week from the market. So we should be able to get some good price action here this week in terms of our market structure. But that's what I'm looking for on the ES. Now, taking a look here at the YM. The YM, same story, kind of flows out. But look at how this weekly closed for the YM, right? So we were pretty much bullish the entire week. And then Friday, we flipped the candle to being bearish. Now, the YM is the only one that's actually pushed inside of the resistance here. So you can see that it has already retested a couple weeks ago, let's say 2 weeks ago. It already retested that key larger time frame area of interest, you can see, and it's closing. I mean, on this monthly time frame, this is a very high impulsive move to the downside. It would be hard to bet against price actually being bullish on this current next monthly, and more so not to break our previous monthly high. So what can we see happening here, right? This monthly candle closed super bearish. We know that this is a larger time frame area of resistance, and what can we potentially see on the next monthly? Obviously a steeper move back up to probably retest this area of interest, and then a continuation of this move to the downside, just being that price close or is looking to close as of right now. This monthly hasn't closed yet. We still have 2 days and 8 hours left, but I don't anticipate any, Powell's news on Monday to flip the entire monthly. I'm not saying that it can't, but it's very, very unlikely. So we're looking like this monthly is going to close as a bearish. A monthly, weekly has been bearish. The daily closed bearish. You can see prices actually broke below this key area of resistance on this daily time frame. This is a good sign that price could potentially push to the downside here. Now, if we take a look, what do we want to see? We want to see some type of correction to form, potentially retesting this area that we're at now. We could likely see a steeper move here for the YM. We definitely want to see how price reacts after taking out this low here to see if we're going to get, let's say, a shallow correction or maybe a steeper correction up before seeing a continuation to the downside. Again, the YM is the one that was the weakest in terms of its bearish structure based on how the weekly candles close. So if you take a look at and compare these weeklies here, the NASDAQ closed very, very strong. You can see the ES closing pretty strong there as well. And then the YM really struggled to close as a bearish weekly here. And you can see just by the end of Friday, we just barely got that shallow break. The structure is still bearish, and we would need price to break back above that key area of resistance. You can see on the lower time frame, we've already retested that larger time frame area of interest that we were talking about here, right? So if we look at this monthly, or really just even this weekly, that's where price pushed up to this week, retesting that larger time frame area of interest. And since we've already retested and rejected off of this larger time frame area, I don't see why price couldn't push us again steeper to the downside here. Let's go like that. Now, the only thing is it closed as a weak bearish candle, so we might see, a steeper top wick, probably try to test back into that area again, depending on, how this news shakes out this week. But just keep an eye out for this. And we're anticipating, again, that steeper move to the downside. If we do look for this move here, it would be targets of, what's this area? We'll be targeting 44, like 650, let's say 44,700 would be our likely target on the week, 44,700. If we can get a steeper weekly move to the downside. Now, what this is doing is this is low-key slowing up in volume, right? We had a nice high volume move. We're slowing up in volume. This monthly is beginning to close. The next monthly is going to have to put in its top wick, and we could potentially then see, once the monthly again breaks through this low, that next month could see, or April, we could see a nice bearish move to the downside. And that's really what I'm anticipating here. So on the lower time frame, what are these targets that we're looking for? Where are some areas of resistance that we could see? I mean, we have resistance here. Price just took out this key lower time frame area of interest. If we do push back, break above this area of resistance here, then this is where I'm going to look for price to go. That's going to be that 45 like 750 levels. If we do see a flip off of this 45,750 levels, a nice strong bearish confirmation, then we'll look for price to target back into the previous week low at this 45,276. Now keep an eye out that we did close with a lot of volume here on Friday, so we can see either price open up with some gaps to the downside, or potentially just immediately on open start pushing us back to the downside. So keep an eye out for that there. I still do want to see some type of correction of form. Again, I don't want to just hop in front of all of this volume here. I do want to see some structure form and us to respect some of these larger time frame key areas of interest, and then look for my move to the downside. So that's what we're going to be looking for this week in terms of our overall market structure, looking for price to push us back down to that 44,705. Again, last week we were looking for that move, that continued move to the downside from our previous weekly, just being that we had closed below that low. You can see we retest that larger time frame area of interest and then gave us that nice move to the downside, breaking through our previous weekly low. Now, just like how I said with the YM and all of these, realistically all of them, we opened, if I'm not mistaken, last week with a gap down. So where did we open at? Friday, right here. So this is what I mean by be prepared that, you know, price can open with a gap down, because we close with so much volume and it could just push down, or we could see a potential gap up. If we see a gap up, I'm definitely looking for that continuation sell to the downside. That's going to be a good gap that we could potentially fill, because why? Gaps get filled. And what do I mean by gaps get filled? Well, look at this impulsive move here that filled this gap, and it pushed all the way up to our key area of resistance. Now, the unfortunate thing about this is it left no structure for us to be able to like trade this move. It literally was one 5-minute candle that happened at 7:05, and then, you know, we had this slow gradual move to the downside, but it took quite some time to push and correct this, you know, this 1 5-minute candle that started off our week last week. So just expect, if, you know, we open with some type of gap, that gap to get filled sometime throughout the week, whether we gap down or we gap up. But just know that gaps are filled when, you know, as the markets are closed, price is still able to move, right? So price is still moving here. We just can't trade it. And so when it does open up and we're able to trade, it'll open up at that key area of, or not key area of interest, but it'll open up with a gap. And we just won't see the specific price action or candle movement that it did. And that's actually how we get those gaps there. So it's also why you don't want to hold trades over the weekend. Unless you're really swing trading and taking those larger time frame positions. But other than that, you know, that's what we're going to be, you know, looking for this week. So expect, let's actually take a look at gold, because we didn't even take a look at gold. Gold, man. We got a lot to talk about gold here. Gold on the monthly time frame, very, very bearish, right? Bearish engulfing the past 2 months. I mean, gold had just been bullish for, I mean, since August to February, we had just been bullish on gold. So much so that they had to ban trading on, you know, certain commodities or certain, you know, prop firms and things like that, because gold was just too much. You literally could buy gold on the week open, hold that trade for the whole week, and it would go up. Because look at this weekly time frame here. These weekly candles, they was just literally closing bullish, right? So more recently, we just had so much volume. Gold was making astronomical moves, right? On these daily candles, you could buy every day and just be good for the full week, right? That's just how it was. And then we seen, you know, all of that money liquidated in the markets, and price finally have formed a correction. But for like 3 weeks, we were just we've been bullish for a long time. So what are we seeing now on gold? Well, our previous weekly did close as a bullish candle. Despite it closing as a weak bullish candle, we do have this rejection here that's showing that price does want to, or buyers want to push the markets up. The overall structure on gold is bullish, but you can see how this monthly candle is going to close. And if we close with this in the next 2 days and 8 hours, if we close with this wick here, we likely will see a steeper move up on gold before potentially making maybe another move to the downside. We just have to see. But in terms of the price action on gold, below these lows, we kind of been chopped right here. I'm not gonna say we've been chopped, but we kind of been stuck under these lows here. Price is holding up, trying to, short some type of resistance off of this level. And technically, in a technical sense, we are bearish on gold. So what is gold doing on the 4 hour time frame though? What we had is an impulsive move down. So let's just draw this structure out real quick. What we've seen is an impulsive move down, a corrective structure. How do we know the difference between an impulsive move versus a corrective structure? The volume or the size of the candles versus the correction. So we know that we were overall bearish, and then as we push down to this resistance, look at how these 4 hour bullish candles close. You can see here, not a lot of strong volume here. To correct one 4 hour candle, it took one, two, or essentially one, two, three 4 hour candles. So that's essentially 12 hours of time. And basically it's just showing that price wants to push to the downside, and that volume is strong here to our downside. So what are we seeing happening now? That same thing. We had an impulsive move down here, and what we're seeing happen is a corrective structure form. So price is creating higher highs and higher lows, trying to correct this one impulsive move. If we take a look here, I don't have it favorited, but I should. Let me see. Boom. There we go. We can see from here to here was, let's say, it was 6 bars, so 3 days. It took 3 days to make this move here to this move here. It is taken from here. Let's delete this real quick so I can see it. All right. It has taken from that moment. It has taken 4 days and 12 hours to correct, I would say probably 70% of that move. So it's taken much longer to go in this direction. Now, what are these some key signs of? This is key signs of a possible reversal coming. Now, we know the previous weekly did close as a bullish weekly. It closed as a weak bullish weekly, but we got to see how price actually is going to react back at this key area of resistance. If price can break above this area here, then especially with some volume, then we could potentially start pushing bullish. But if this area of interest holds, and as of right now, impulsive move versus a corrective move, I'm anticipating yet another impulsive move to the downside, and we have, the volume to do that. Again, we close as a weak bearish weekly, and then we have this like larger time frame area of resistance that price is coming back into to potentially retest and potentially give us a steeper move to the downside. I would look for price to sweep the previous weekly low, which would be down here at 4100. So that's what I would be looking for in terms of our overall move here on gold, especially if price can break down back below this resistance here at 43.64. We get back below that 43.64, and especially we hold this resistance here at this 4600, then a move back down into 4100 to break the previous weekly lows, and an impulsive move is what I would anticipate. So this is looking like my highest probability setup for this week, and that's what I'm going to be looking for. So that'll wrap us up here. If you guys have no questions, what does this say? Hello, how's it going? How's it going? Q1, brother. Yeah. No, I definitely was coking that quarter. But yeah, those are the moves that we're looking for. All the price action we're looking at. Do you guys want to take a look at any charts? Like, you guys got any charts that you want to take a look at before I hop off or anything? Because we'll take a look at them, break them down. It doesn't have to be a futures chart. We could take a look at crypto, more metals, oils, stocks, forex, because I know not everybody trades these assets. These are just the watch list that I personally trade each week and what I've been looking for. I've been keeping up an eye on gas, And you can see here that we are bullish on gas. So just keeping, an eye. We're looking at price is going to get back up to that $4 there. And it definitely is. You just expect gas prices to go up in the near future. Uh, Dove stream. All right, preach. All right, well, that's gonna wrap up here today. I gotta figure out a way to make this bigger so that I can see y'all comments. But I'm gonna work on that. We're gonna get it right. But I'll see you guys. For those of you in the VIP, I'll see you guys tomorrow for our live session. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I didn't record short form.